Hello, my child. The time has come for you to fulfill your destiny. You must... Who are you?
I'm Otter. Who are you?
Wait, this isn't... Wrong room. This didn't happen.
No. You cannot just distract me from the fact that this just...
Play this.
Ooh, game.
Yes. Hello, my boy.
Ah! Get out of my room! I'm not a boy!
Warning, Lucius is rated M for a 6-year-old child performing graphic murder as well as graphic sexuality.
Also performed by a...
No! Lucius is an attempt to blend two very bold ideas. A 3D point-and-click puzzle game, and a game in which you are the unrepentant, unredeemable villain. You play the Antichrist, the son of the devil, Lucius. I'm sorry, did I just let slip how unoriginal this was? Don't worry, that's my smallest complaint about the game. I will, from the outset, say Lucius is not a good game. But at first, it might be bad in all the right ways. Over-the-top kills that are ridiculous, but kind of plausible, situation moments that don't necessarily take you out of or immerse you, but are just right in that wrong way, and voice acting that can hit that perfect level of B-movie cheese. It opens with your 6th birthday, where you'll still be expected to do the dishes and be in bed by 10. I can certainly see why we kill the maid by locking her in the walk-in freezer. No, actually, I genuinely have no idea why we're doing this. There's no prompting, no reason to hate the woman. We seem to have essentially been raised by her. We don't even know we're the Antichrist yet, because dear old daddy doesn't appear to tell us about our destiny until after we've already locked her in. But nope, lock her in there, crank up the thermostat, and leave her to die while we go to sleep. Not only does no one notice, but we then have the cognitive power to realize we had to go to sleep early to wake up in the middle of the night so we could sneak back downstairs and take the lock back so that no one suspects a murder. This brings up two of the deepest issues with the game. Firstly, Lucius understands murder versus accident and how to set up situations to perceive them as an accident, as well as what a thermostat is and how it works. He also has enough fine motor skills to quietly sneak around a house and to use a key and lock. In the real world, key milestones for your 6-year-old are showing off improved motor skills such as running and jumping and skipping, basic hand-eye coordination like kicking a ball in a goal, understanding the basic rules of a game. They will also be becoming truly aware of emotions and grasping sophisticated concepts like not hurting someone's feelings. Even just telling time itself is considered a milestone, as is recognizing complex shapes like diamonds. You might suggest this is the Antichrist. Lucius is a precocious child far ahead of his years. I will counter that by pointing out that not only are these milestones expected to be accomplished over the year the child is 6, not to already be present on the birthday in question, but the way he writes in his diary often suggests the genuine intelligence of a 6-year-old, becoming more focused and genuinely intelligent as he reaches 7, but even then it's incredibly childish and doesn't match up to the mental feats that he shows at other points when it suits the game. The idea that this child is 6 is so unbelievable on so many levels that I can assure you it will keep coming up again later. The sneaking mechanics are also absolutely broken. They try to tell you to turn off the lights, but lights on or off are meaningless. You'll be spotted from anywhere, and sometimes even through walls. The game is terribly unclear on what's going on, and while the 3D aspect to the game may have been integral to the concept, it means you have no idea who is where. You can get a game over because someone walks through a door and sees you, while you have no way of knowing they would be arriving at that moment. This would be even more apparently broken later in the game when there's an entire forced stealth section where you must sneak through an entire house. Navigating the house itself was also incredibly difficult, as the only map available is a hand-drawn sketch with crayons, created in a genuine manner for a 6-year-old child. Once the maid's dead body is found, the cops are, of course, called, and all of the belief of those cops is dropped out from the story. Firstly, because of this note. You call yourself a professional? Who writes that on their evidence board? Also, we are shown him examining the area where the lock was placed, right before he declares it a misadventure. She must have had a bad heart, suffered from a stroke from a sudden temperature change, and passed out and then froze to death.
Now, for those of you who have never worked somewhere with a walk-in freezer, and for the devs who clearly cannot be bothered to do their own research on their kills, I'm going to explain some things. Inside of a walk-in freezer, there's something called a crash bar. When you're inside and you hit the crash bar, the freezer opens. Now, the devs knew this, and they included it. And from the outside, if you hold it shut or if you lock the freezer, some crash bars still won't open. Some still won't open. They seem to know this as well.
However, a crash bar will still create a lot of pressure as it tries to force the freezer door open. No person trapped inside of a freezer will be complacent about getting out, slamming into that crash bar as hard as they can.
This results in the moving parts of the door that are holding the lock crashing up against each other and the lock repeatedly as you smash into it in an attempt to break it like that. This results in not only damage to the door itself where it's pulling, but to the lock inside of it. It is incredibly obvious if this happens.
No investigator who looked at this door would not find it immediately obvious that the door had been locked while the woman tried to escape. Also, victims like this will bang on the door, violently trying to force it open, as we see her do for a moment. This causes bruising on the hands and forearms. Bruises do not go away when you die. Moral of the story, this detective graduated from the University of Dumbass, and I can't take him seriously. It almost falls into that B-movie horror trope that the police can't see what's going on, but when it should have been so obvious to anyone who knows anything about murder, it takes you right out of the experience, especially in a place like this where the audience is themselves expected to be somewhat experienced with this concept. Her death brings your father's campaign manager to the house because apparently he is in Congress, and you hate that the campaign manager smokes, so you disable the gas oven's safety valves and blow up his face. He doesn't smell the gas, he doesn't feel it, he just lights up. It's dumb, but it's the horror movie dumb that you would expect and are here for. This is followed up by a visit from dear old daddy to teach us telekinesis, and then you dropping a piano on a drunk Irish handyman's head. That kill was amazing. You know what else was amazing?
What? Your hand's more inside that toilet than the plunger is. Okay.
Yeah, glitches are really, really common because the game is not well designed. And they're glorious.
The game feels like it's even going in the right direction after this. The next kill takes full advantage of you having paid attention earlier. The handyman had been fixing a lamp, and you had to walk past him in 2 kills ago. Now the butcher needs a bulb from you, so if you go back to the lamp he was fixing, you find a spare bulb. I felt smart and rewarded, and the kill even made perfect sense. You never climb on top of a circular saw that's plugged in, because anything could go wrong. A power surge could overload the system and turn it on without warning, or you could just slip on the leftover blood, or sawdust if you're not a butcher, and land on the blade. I do have a very big complaint, but I'll get to it later, because there's some bigger fish to fry. And by fish, I mean this game puts on cement shoes to be among them. Everyone hates the head of the household servants, and because she's guilty of the cardinal sin of gluttony, we must kill her. Not really, but that's what we write in the light blue fuzzy bear notebook that Satan gave us.
Lucius, my boy, you of all people do not get to judge someone over being fat. Or anything else, really. And you're 6. How do you understand the concept of cardinal sins?
No, my complaints aren't the main issue. The main issue is that in order to figure out how to kill the woman, we have to wander to the literal opposite end of the house for no reason whatsoever, and no bidding or hint whatsoever, so that you can see where to get rat poison, whereupon you can do a forced stealth section at night through the house to get back to that room and steal the rat poison so that you can go to the kitchen and put it into the basket of bread rolls that didn't exist on the counter until that exact moment in the game, because setting things up before they're needed would just seemingly be too much to ask of these developers. As a reward for your efforts, Dear Old Devil teaches you how to control people's minds. This is an absurdly fickle ability that works or doesn't work when it wants to, and it won't be used on our next kill. It's now Christmas, and it's the elderly butler's turn, which is strange to me because he's one of the only people in the house that genuinely has treated us kindly at all times. Everyone else may try to be nice, usually, but they're kind of a jerk, and like to point out that I never talk, which, by the way... Omen did it first! Book or movie, take your pick. The solution for this puzzle also threw me for a complete loop. I figured out I needed to get the icicle down into the old man's head, and that I needed to unplug the Christmas lights to get him to move. What I could not figure out was how to make an icy patch. Apparently there's been a water bottle on our bedroom shelf the entire time. I didn't think there was, but I checked the footage, and it was since the beginning. I just blended it in mentally with all the other non-interactable, useless junk on our shelf. We need that specific water bottle to carry water in and make an icy patch.
Now it's time to bring back up my complaint from earlier. So, for those of you not up on your murder, which strangely seems to include the developers of this game focused on murder, there is a thing called blood.
It's that pretty red stuff you like to put all over the walls when I see the person I'm going to kill. But, okay, here's why other smarter horror properties put blood on the walls.
See, when a person dies, their heart doesn't stop working right away, and even if it did, blood is what we call a liquid. Liquids don't like being confined inside of a container, so when you open that container somehow, say, smashing the head open like a watermelon or sticking an icicle through an eye socket, you've broken the vessel and the blood goes everywhere in what we call a spatter pattern. Real detectives can tell about crime scenes by looking at this pattern alone.
Now, if Lucius did what I have him do and dropped pianos and icicles from really far away, no problem, we're outside the splash zone. But in every single cutscene, you have moved him in as close to that body as possible so he can watch their eyes leave their life. This will create a massive amount of blood on his white shirt, and if you try to tell me a 6-year-old is laundering the blood out of his own clothes in a house that originally had 10 servants in it, I will slap some sense into you.
Even if he has somewhere to hide an infinite number of outfits that are all exactly identical, there will still be this convenient 6-year-old sized hole in the splatter pattern. And any real detective will look at the splatter pattern and go, there's a suspicious tiny area where there's no blood here for some reason, because there was something standing there. And there's only one person in this house that's small.
That the detective is sure there were no witnesses at this point, when he's already investigating what he knew to be a murder with a poisoned woman, is pushing stupidity right over the edge of that cliff. Funny I should mention things going over cliffs, because our next target is one of the maids. Why are we targeting her? Because the 6-year-old wants to frame her. I'll say that again, and I want you to let it sink in deep. The first grader wants to frame her for murder. We think there's something going on between her and Uncle Tom, who has never ever been mentioned before this moment. Well, the maid is working and boring, so let's go see what Uncle Tom is up to.
Oh. What? Oh! What? What? Okay.
Why? Why did you put that in a game for a 6-year-old to find? I'm on a watch list now, thank you so much! Okay, Uncle Tom's got some fidelity issues. We'll just have to show the maid. How do we do that? The 6-year-old needs to take a picture of them in flagrante.
Kid, please.
They're already coming for me at this point. Please stop.
A picture, lock, and some rat poison planted later, and no one's possibly going to check for fingerprints, and you follow her to the balcony. Her mind is weak, so we can control her to interact with the balcony.
Ha ha! Ooh, that's cool. Yup.
I believe I can.
I don't know why I find that so funny. No, there's nothing wrong with me. Shut up. Also,
Use the Force, Luke. Let go, Luke.
The Force is strong in its weak.
Also, the Omen did it. Twice.
It turns out Tom really did love the maid, though, since he's been drinking ever since and isolating himself. It's not hard to get the bottle of pills from the secret underground dungeon, put it in an undrunk bottle, put it next to him, and let alcoholism take its course. Honestly, we probably did him a favor. Failed liver is an awful way to go. I feel like I'm glossing over something important there. Oh, well, time to kill a Hispanic gardener that has literally never appeared in the game before this mission. Remember how we can only use mind control on weak-minded people? Well, with no explanation or prompting, we don't need to do anything to make him have a weak mind. Apparently, he is just naturally weak-willed and willing to stick his head into a running lawnmower for us. But hey, isn't everybody deep down? The house is visited by some priests, which goes nowhere. The grandfather drives them off the property, and we keep on killing. Omen kinda did it. It turns out Grandpa knows exactly who we are. He kidnaps a reporter that broke into the house in a liberal interpretation of stand your ground laws, dragging him on down to the dungeon I mentioned earlier. He then wakes you up, telling you to meet him in the dungeon. What follows is the longest stealth section in the entire game. If you haven't realized that you are going to have to get it, you'll also have to sneak through an extra part of the house to retrieve your super glue from your school desk. While I ran into an obnoxious glitch where I was seen and found through a closed door, I want to repeat this again. They allow the 6-year-old to have his own bottle of super glue! I see no problems potentially arising from this choice. Once you can finally get through the stealth, you help Grandpa set up for a ritual sacrifice before stabbing him in the back. No, literally, a 6-year-old has the physical strength to bury a ceremonial dagger deep enough and high enough into an adult male to almost instantly kill him in one hit. 6 years old, yeah, totally believable. This unlocks your new demonic power to shoot fireballs from your hands. This is awesome, as far as I can tell original, and only slightly marred by being used in a boss fight. This point-and-click puzzle game throws in a boss fight. This might have been obnoxious, but... No one finds them even as the months pass by and the bodies probably start to smell. Instead, we're left free to kill our teacher. At least the gardener was in a picture in the opening cutscene. I have literally never seen or heard of this teacher at any other point in the game. If that wasn't forced enough, simply being unable to find a textbook makes him mentally weak enough to be convinced to shoot himself in the head. You would think we can't pretend to be there for that one, but it's never mentioned that he did it in front of us. But because it was suicide, we're in the clear either way. After all, real detectives don't chuck guns for fingerprints, right? By the way, in case you're as dense as the developers, yes, they would check for fingerprints since this game takes place sometime after 1963 based on the make of the camera and the nail gun in a later scene. Not that these chuckleheads have any clue about a nail gun, but we'll get there. We'll get there. It's the other maid's turn. She's taking a bath, so to get to her, we have to find Uncle Tom's...
FBI, open up!
This game actually made me worried here because I was streaming it at the time. They made it seem like they're trying their hardest to shove her nudity in your face, all the way up to literally shoving her crotch at your face as she dies. And no, I'm not unblurring it. The cops once again assume suicide, so I'm free to go after the chauffeur. We knock him out by having him smell a cloth. We never put anything on the cloth, yet it knocks him out and tells me I put ether on it. When? Where? At what juncture of my existence? I have not even found ether in this game. It hardly matters. The game has gone from bad in the right ways to be fun to simply being frustrating and barely following any train of logic. Even if you know what should be done, you still can't do it because that's not precisely how they intended you to do it. A perfect example comes right after when we turn on the car to kill the driver with the exhaust. The black handyman is blamed and chained to a shelf. I have access to my fireball, and I've been told it doesn't matter if he sees my true nature. So I go to burn him. This ability has never had any trouble torching living flesh. It never will again. But for this one moment, I can only kill this man by pouring gasoline all over him first. The moment after he is dead, I hide in the next room over. There is no way out. There is nowhere else to go. But the cops that arrive moments after the death just freak out, then leave. They don't search the area. They don't check for suspects. They just swear a bit and get upset. True professionals, ladies and gentlemen.
And now what you've all been waiting for, the entire level of this game that took its credibility and kicked it off a mountain so high that it never reached the bottom.
It's Mom's turn. She brought you out to the garden and you're told she needs to die. There's a very obvious nail gun in the shed along with an air compressor, but there's no power running towards the shed. I followed the power from the shed along the line, all along the wall until it vanishes into the house. Where to go? Nowhere. What's the solution?
Okay. Ready for this?
You need to go back inside to the garage in the back storage room to find a spare fuse on some shelves that is not labeled as a fuse nor looks anything like a fuse from the time period, although it is next to some fuse boxes. Yes, it was a style of fuses used prior to 1950, but as I've already mentioned, if you want the camera and nail gun in your game, then your game is set in the mid-1960s at the very earliest, and you cannot convince me that this rich, self-important man has over 15-year-old outdated technology running his home. Pick a time period, stick to it. I've frankly done more research for this review than you did for your entire game, unless you count you having seen The Omen a few too many times. Once you have the outdated fuse, you put it in a fuse box. Because this 6-year-old also understands fuse boxes, let alone ones designed and created and have left production before he was even born. You go back outside and we hit an all-time low! The mower kill was already pretty sketchy due to the speed of mower blades making it unlikely he could get his entire head inside at once. The balcony jump actually might not have killed her from that height with how she hit the ground. At least, not instantly. It may have caused mortal damage, but she would have probably survived long enough to tell.
But this kill! I was heavily involved in building and construction of the house that I live in. So, more than most people, I seem to be qualified to discuss this, and I'm going to say it very slowly for these developers. There is no nail gun that works in the way you have portrayed here.
While they do run off air pressure for the most part, those that do are not freestanding with some sort of charging system. You connect the gun to the hose you showed, and it stays there. That provides the air pressure. The freestanding nail guns are run off electricity with batteries. Powder-actuated nail guns can be used freestanding sometimes, but they do not fire free-flying projectiles.
Nail guns are not like guns. They cannot shoot a nail in order to kill someone, which is how you seem to expect us to kill her.
You set it on the ground, mind control your father, and he shoots her in the head.
To fire a nail gun, you must depress the tip. This is a safety feature. Even if we disabled the safety feature, which we don't, but even if we did, nail guns do not fire with any level of accuracy, distance, or, for the most part,
power over any amount of space. Even if they did, they do not shoot the nails that you have portrayed. They shoot either ultra-thin specialized nails or small/thin roofing nails, neither of which is the gigantic flat broad-headed nail that you've displayed here. They do not shoot the massive broad-headed deck nails that you show in the cutscene because the heads would damage the inside of the gun after a single fire because of the shape and size and would be impossible to shoot with any level of force. To top off the cavalcade of miscalculated carnage, you do it right in front of the cops, who literally do not notice your father leveling a gun at your mother's head or you very obviously waving your hand around like the world's quietest Sith Lord. They only notice once she's dead, and even then barely. Your dad regains control of himself and runs off, being chased by the detective. You're left alone with the other cop. You get him to shoot the crosses in the room he's put you in because he's paranoid, then shoot the fan. It breaks off, falling to the table on an absurd length of cord. Okay, more research for you developers that you can be bothered to do yourself. When you install a light fixture or a ceiling fan, you do not keep a bunch of hanging cord up there in the ceiling. You want as little of that actually as possible because it's not actually feasible to properly connect the ceiling fan or light into the ceiling and cement it there if you do that. This is especially true for ceiling fans. The, I'm going to charitably say poorly installed fan swings wildly around the room as the cop ducks once, then turns his back to it. You are not seriously going to... Really, guys? Really?
Oh, jugular!
Deadly, but not decapitation. Myth still busted.
So this is the most powerful fan you can buy. And obviously it wasn't enough power, so now we have to create our own fan. And I think we're going to start with a lawnmower.
Wow. What happened? It's a horror show in there. Oh, and now it's just carving it up. Look, glasses hovering in midair. Wait, here they come, here they come. And this is perhaps one of the most upsettingly lethal things you guys have ever built.
But still no head. I can't believe how hard it is to chop a head off.
It is apparently very difficult to chop a head off. This injury that this thing inflicted was definitely lethal, but it still didn't behead our dummy. I mean, I think that's busted.
That is
Totally
busted.
Unfortunately.
That was aired in 2004 and was already known to be a joke. Your game came out in 2012. What's your excuse? Lacking anything else, I'm going to assume incompetence combined with a lack of willingness to do any research, combined with you were trying to just pad out and rush the ending of the game because you were on a deadline, because this whole ending feels really rushed.
You can't even claim it looks cool, because it doesn't. It looks stupid, not least because he stood back up into it with his back turned after he knew it was there and swinging like that. I'm not upset about these kills because I demand perfection from my murder simulator. I'm angry and disappointed with the developers because of the style of game. There'll be another nail gun being used as a gun in a game later this month, and I wouldn't complain about it, except maybe in a small passing moment. This game deserves the rant because it's selling itself as a puzzle game. You cannot change the way the world or environment works for one thing in a puzzle game, where the player is meant to deduce how to progress. If you set up an alternate world, then that's fine. But without that, that's akin to telling us how to solve a jigsaw puzzle where some of the sky is arbitrarily green and every piece is the same shape. After that bit of stupidity, you get the single dumbest decision in the entire game. It's a picture of Lucius's face, and on one side a flame, and on the other side a puzzle piece. Click one.
What this is apparently trying to tell you is that you are choosing between an action set piece and a puzzle set piece. With puzzle in the biggest quotation marks I've ever made. I did not know this. Like anyone who wasn't a developer would not have known this. So I picked action. So out of nowhere, your dad and the priest from earlier come bursting back into your house, which is now on fire. You need to use the fireballs to kill the priest before they bless the evil out of you and kill you. Once they're gone, your dad grabs a fire extinguisher, and every time you try to light him on fire, he flails around with it, putting the fire back out. If he hits you with the extinguisher once, you're dead. GG, no re. You have to get this pill to drop in front of him, not on him in front of him, because why would I try to drop it on him and kill him? Come on! Not gonna lie, I actually did this by accident, trying to drop it on him after over 10 minutes of the same 30 seconds of game over and over and over. Well, your father is trapped. You walk out of the house to be picked up by the returning detective. That was incredibly dissatisfying, so I went back to complete the puzzle ending. This time, when the priests run in, the elder priest pins you into the back room. Not even gonna deign that with a joke. You lift up objects in the room, move them slightly with telekinesis, then drop them. The game will kick into gear and give you a hand to actually hit him with objects, since there's no way to actually control the object move to hit things. Not counting all of the times when he was hit from behind and teleported backwards, this fight glitched out twice. Once where I hit the priest and he went into suspended animation.
Hello? Did I glitch it? Now what? Father? Father? Aren't you going to exercise me? Excuse me, Father. Hello? Father? Oh, this is so well made. They totally didn't rush this ending at all.
Then when he got thrown back and dropped his cross, the next time he glitched through the door and I had to wait for him to come back to me. It was almost ruined immediately, though. I thought we'd do something creepy and interesting, like mind control him to his cross and get him to stab himself with it. You already ripped off the Omen a ton of times, add the Exorcist or something. But no, you just charge up a fireball, toss it to yourself like a baseball, kinda cool, and torch this place.
You remind me of a man.
What man?
Oh, the man with the power.
What power?
Oh, the power of Satan.
What?
Satan.
The next priest is standing under a chandelier that you can break. That's not actually how you're meant to beat him, though. No. In this puzzle solution, you chase him into another room, stand on an invisible spot that makes your power surge, and hit him with fireballs before he runs away. He doesn't actually burn instantly like every other person hit with this fire, though. Instead, he jumps out a window into the rain, and you summon down a metal rod from the roof to impale him. It is the coolest kill in the game, and it was literally stolen from probably the most iconic death in the Omen. The chandelier is actually for your dad. You mind control him to interact with the statue head and hope the game doesn't glitch out. This can range from the statue head having moved location so that the chandelier drops in a completely wrong place and there's nothing you can do about it other than hope he'll eventually glitch the head back where it goes. Or sometimes, apparently, and I'm so thankful this one didn't happen to me, the head can be moved in such a way that it automatically prevents you from respawning when you get a game over, and will permanently lock you into an infinite game over state until you relog from a past chapter and replay to this point in the game cold. But assuming the head is in the right place, you can drop the chandelier on him, or several feet to his side, close enough apparently. You charge up a fireball, and then the cutscene kicks in. Before you can loose the blast, your dad grabs the cross off the floor. There is no reason it should be there, considering one priest dropped his in the other room, and the other priest took his out a window with him. Well, Dad's got it now, and he throws it at our head, knocking us down. We're suddenly completely unable to fight back, or even move, because there's a cross near us. Hasn't been a problem before, unless we were using powers, but whatever. He raises the fire extinguisher above himself, ready to bash our brains out, but he's shot in the back.
Omen did it first.
The detective helps us up and escorts us out of the house. This ending left me feeling pissed off, frustrated, and nothing else. And they had such great chances. The pole kill was great, but like the concept of the entire game, it was stolen. They even had moments of their own set up for them, like this stare down between the father and son. This would have been the perfect chance to finally have Lucius say something for the first time all game. It would have been so creepy for him to just say one line in a genuine little boy voice, acknowledging everything he's done, like, "Goodbye, father," or "I always knew." Anything could work! That's what I felt about the whole game. From the outset, I thought it wasn't a good game. The puzzles weren't clever for the most part, the story wasn't well written or interesting, characters appear out of nowhere just to add to the body count, and everything was poorly programmed. But for the first half of the game, I didn't mind. It was the perfect bad to me that it was enjoyably terrible. Like an awful but hilarious movie, like The Room or Nudist Colony of the Dead. And it might have stayed that way if they kept putting in the same effort. But instead, everything devolved into the parts that were truly bad, until I just couldn't wait for the game to be over. How this got a sequel, I'll never understand.
If you want to see gore, play literally any other horror game. If you want to see a little Antichrist kill people, go watch The Omen. Either the original or the remake, it's the same one. Literally, apparently, the remake is so identical to the first one that the Screenwriters Guild took away the writing credit from the writer of the remake and gave it to the original writer. I'm not kidding, look it up. Anyways, don't waste your time on Lucius. It's really not worth it. It's so bad it's good at the beginning, but then that'll push you on to the end and all the goodwill will seep out of you like you're a sponge in the desert.
Lucius. Amusing glitches and some interesting moments can't make up for broken stealth mechanics, rushed efforts, bad puzzles, a complete lack of originality, a literal god-awful ending, and showing me my uncle shagging a maid and forcing me to take a picture of it.
We know you're still in there.
3 out of 10.
Oh, the power of Satan!
What?
Satan!
Wait, this isn't...
Start over.